I started drinking when I was 13. And from 13 until 19, when I went in the service, it was some, I guess, could describe it as a train wreck. So I got picked up by the police any number of times. Ended up leaving home when I was 16. Got married and became a father when I was 17 and divorced shortly thereafter. I went to college and I missed the part where they said you needed to go to class. And so after 2 semesters, I'd flunked out of college. And so I joined the Marine Corps. It was such a dramatic departure from the way I was living when I went in the service. My first day, we land there in Dong Ha, which just had a little tiny airstrip, and I reported into headquarters, and he checked me in, and he said, "You need to report to Graves." And so I went out the tent and I started down the strip, and the reason they had assigned me there is because they were understaffed and they had gotten word that they were bringing a lot of dead in from the field. And somebody had to process those bodies. I got probably within about 20 or 30 yards of graves, and the smell hit me. The smell was so powerful that it struck me and I threw up. A lot of them didn't have all their body parts, and some of them, we had a few that had been burned by napalm strikes that didn't hit closely. So the problem with the process was that when you're bringing the dead back in from the field, wounded and wounded always had priority, and then we always had a lot of weather issues. So normally the dead might be out there for quite a period of time before they got brought back to be processed and sent back to the States. And so I spent somewhere, I can't remember the number of days, but I spent probably the first 7 or 8 days there. They'd bring them in from the field on choppers, and the dead would hopefully, or normally, they'd be loaded in a poncho, and so 3 or 4 of us would run out, grab an edge of the poncho, run it into graves, which was kind of an open air facility. Then you had to wash the body. And then we had big rolls of cotton that we had to take the cotton and stuff all the holes to keep from leaking inside the body bags we put them in. My first week of Vietnam, which I originally, at the time, I thought was probably the worst 7 days of my life. In retrospect and in looking back today, it probably is why I'm still here today. The reality of seeing that did away with any illusions I had about what war was all about. We'd work 8, 10, 12 hours a day cleaning up bodies and stuffing them in body bags, and then go and try and eat something if you could stomach to eat something, and then go to bed and try and go to sleep. And sometimes you can sleep and sometimes you can't. And sometimes all you can do is just try and gag yourself to keep from sobbing. And that's how I started out in Vietnam. And I came back from Vietnam and my drinking did accelerate significantly. I got married again about 3 years after I came back, and We had a little girl, and about 13 years later, she ended up in a rehab facility. She had been there for about 5 months, and her counselor had been listening to my daughter in group. She called me and said, "I want to have a meeting with you." I thought, well, she's going to give me a report on my daughter and tell me how great she's doing. She started talking about alcoholism and the family disease of alcoholism. And she said, "You're the head of the snake," I guess would be a kind way to put it. It broke me. I believed her enough to go to my first AA meeting, crying all the way. And I thought it was literally the worst day of my life. And it's ended up, in retrospect, being the absolute best day. In looking at the time after I sobered up, I was married to a woman that has probably saved my life in some respects, along with recovery. We'd gone to a movie, a war movie, a Vietnam War movie, which she suggested, and I'd never seen one before, but we'd gone to a Vietnam War movie, and this speaks more to her than it does to me. We were sitting in the movie, and about a third of the way through it, I just kind of slid down onto the floor. I didn't have any control over it, I guess. And I curled up into a fetal position, and I started sobbing. And my wife, here I am in a movie with people all around, and I'm on the floor sobbing, and she just slid right down there with me, didn't say a word, and put her arms around me. And I don't know how long. We were down there for 10 or 15 minutes, and I got some composure, I guess you'd say, and we got up and left the theater. And I never even saw the end of the movie. So that has been touching, because it just reminds me of how important finding my wife after I sobered up and getting married, and what she's meant to me in my sobriety. Being in recovery and being a part of Springboard has restored to me all the things that I threw away back when I was drinking. I've got 3 children today, good relationships with them, and they're all doing well in life. I've been sober for 37 years. Springboard, since I've been involved here, I've been active in AA and going to meetings and sponsoring guys. And so I get to interact with the residents, the clients here, and I get to see the lights come on in their eyes. And I get to watch them come in the first week not being real happy, and by their 4th week leaving residential and heading for sober living or heading for IOP, and seeing their life beginning to change. You can't put a price tag